Mona Magick. Tonight's guest is Janelle and Rob Alex. You would have recalled me having them on my podcast a few years back. And with that, we did talk about sex and spirituality, but we brought it up a few notches, not just a couple. Tonight we'll be talking about magic, sex, spirituality, the norm, and several other things. So sit back, listen, and here they are. Hello everyone, I'm Mona Magick. Tonight's guest is about sex. Tonight's guest is a sexy couple. Tonight's guest I've had on my show some time ago, on my podcast, if you recall. And I'd like you to welcome both Rob and Janelle Alex. Hello, guys. How are you doing?
Wonderful. It's great to be here.
Yeah, we're doing great.
That's good. I know that I had you on my show a few years back, and all the two of you've been doing is talking about sex and, getting things going on and making, let's just say, changes and plans. So what have you been doing since the last time that we spoke?
Wow.
Oh, gosh, there's been so much going on. It's been a whirlwind. We have obviously moved locations.
Mm-hmm. Right. We moved across of course, we're in the U.S., and we moved basically almost all the way across the country. So, yeah.
What were you before?
We were in Indiana,
which
is the Midwest,
yes.
And then we are now in the West. We're in Colorado, so it's a big change.
Right.
So a beautiful change. We're right where you can see the mountains. So and we got 10 inches of snow yesterday.
Yes,
so
we did.
Oh goodness. Yeah, it seems to be sporadic. I always think of the weather like a relationship because you never know what's going to happen. It's always very much unexpected. Sometimes you love it, sometimes you can't do without it. Sometimes you just say, "Oh my goodness, just get away from me." So, with that analogy, I'd like to talk about our topic tonight, which is combining spirituality and sexuality. And sometimes that could be a tongue twister, and sometimes it could be very, let's just say, taboo. Many people don't like to associate spirituality and sexuality because I guess it really throws those feelings up in the air. It really confuses people. How could you possibly be serious and focus on spirituality at the same time? Really put spirituality and sexuality together. Explain how that's done.
To me, at this point in our lives, I think we understand now that really, instead of it being a need to be able to blend them, the truth is there's no separation to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
Religion has separated the two. And so that's been rather unfortunate. Excuse me. It choked me up even. But it's such a sacred experience to be in that space with your lover. And we are very focused on committed, loving relationship.
Right.
So the whole experience, not just the physical intimacy, but the emotional intimacy and the and how bringing your sex life into a more sacred space deepens your emotional bond. So it just transforms your entire relationship as well as your individual selves. I mean, we grew as individuals and as a human perspective, but as well as spiritually, we experienced spiritual growth. So for me, it's so integrated that I can't separate the two. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it really, for me, it really opened everything up in our relationship. It got, to give an analogy myself, it got the juices flowing. It really showed us that there was more to both relationship and to spirituality. And it was really the same thing that integrated all of it. Mm-hmm. So it was quite powerful.
Well, and Rob was not a spiritual guy.
No, not
at
all.
Prior to experiencing transcendental sexual experience, and then validation of the vision that he received at the point of orgasm or climax, and then finding that vision in daily life and how it occurred, and it really was just a spiritual awakening for him, and then it's just
flowed from there.
Yeah.
Well, I understand exactly where you're coming from. I do trust that most, not all, but possibly, and I'm sure that most of our viewers have had sexual intercourse or some type of orgasm, be it, whatever way they have chosen to do that.
Right.
And they can associate a sensation of what you're talking about. But how does that differ in your words from an orgasm in spirituality versus basically pure ecstasy that you would actually experience, or pleasure that you would experience via an orgasm without spirituality?
Mm.
Well, I like to think, and this might be a weird concept for a lot of people, but I like to think at the moment of orgasm that we either leave our body, maybe we even go and live another lifetime during that, what seems like a brief moment to us right here in the physical form. But, if you really think about it, what happens when you orgasm? You kind of, or for me anyhow, I kind of, black out. I don't feel anything. I don't sense anything. The pleasure is so pure that, I don't know exactly what could be happening. Like I said, I have some feelings that maybe at that point I actually live an entire another life and then come back. So there's so many things that can be lived during that time.
Well, I think it definitely is a time or an opportunity to tap into the divine, whatever that is for the individual. But when you are not experiencing that, or you're not anticipating that, it can spontaneously occur. But if you don't have that intent and you're just focused on the physical pleasure, then that's it. You're focused on the physical pleasure, and that's what you feel. And you still may get to that sense of the void,
right,
which is how I kind of describe how he describes it. It sounds like the void to me, because it's like this blissful nothingness state for a brief, however long. If you're lucky, it's a little longer. But that point is the gateway to the universe, to spirit, to whatever. And if we're not consciously aware of that, or not prepared for that, then we don't necessarily kind of step through the door, to use another analogy, I guess, or metaphor. Does that help a little bit?
Well, of course it does. Well, let's talk about the steps, because when you're talking about spirituality and you're talking about, let's say, areas of let's just be real about it. Many people consider anything other than the actual traditional religions the occult. And they go into the aspects of ritual, and then you're talking about magic, you're talking about intent. So in the steps in doing that, and let's just say, let's just talk real, because there's a clinical way to talk about this, and there's a, let's just talk about this. Let's just say you're getting horny, okay? What would you classify that as a sense of connecting your spirituality with your sexuality and sex? Would that be a point of, let's just say, let's get myself geared up for this particular spiritual venture? What's the purpose of, and the purpose as well as the steps that you would actually take and explain those steps to people so they can actually get that explosion and what they want from it?
Well, no, go ahead if you have something. I've got.
Well, no, I think the big thing is, it's not an instantaneous process where it's, it might not happen for you the very first time. It takes some work. It takes some practice. You have to find what works for you. We've combined many things from other traditions into our practice, and I can't say that our practice is going to work for everybody else. We can look back into some of the pagan traditions where they would make love in the fields and things like that to assure their crops would grow good or grow well. And, taking things like that, setting intention into that passion is the big part of it for my standpoint. I don't want to speak for Janelle, but for my standpoint is, putting some real power behind where it's going. And like you said, as you're getting horny, you're getting ramped up for that. You're starting to feel it. Instead of it just being, oh, this physical attraction, I need to take care of this. It becomes, oh wow, we're going to have this sensual and amazing experience coming up.
And we just talked about this a couple of days ago with someone, and we were talking about the fact that sometimes that your lovemaking, even when you are focused on the very sacredness of it, sometimes it is rip each other's clothes off, crazy, wild, animalistic sex. But it can also be the slow, passionate buildup. Right. And it can last a lot longer, or even the crazy, wild stuff can last longer. And one thing that Rob talks about so often, and of course I agree with him, but it's like, lovemaking doesn't start when you hit that bedroom door or when it's 10 o'clock at night or whatever. It really is constant. It's always there. It's always about holding hands. It's always about trying to maintain some of that spark that you had from early on. And just attention to each other, listening and honoring one another, and being as emotionally connected as you can, because that opens you up where you can trust each other more, because it's a huge matter of trust. Because when you utterly trust your partner, then you're going to allow yourself to be vulnerable.
Right.
And then you're going to be able to be more orgasmic. The passion's going to be more powerful. You're going to be more... it's going to be easier to access, those divine aspects.
Right. Well, when it comes down to this, okay, fine. So you've got the intimacy, you've got the connection. So what begets after that? Is it the purpose of escaping, or is it the purpose of having an intent and then having a result from the intent besides an orgasm? What is your purpose, and how do you associate that to spirituality?
Well, I wouldn't say it's an escape. That one I wouldn't at all, but it doesn't always have to have a purpose. If you're practicing sex magic with that intent, you're wanting to reach some goal, whether it's be healing, whether you're wanting to conceive a child, whether you're wanting to bring financial abundance into your life, because those things do work. Right. And there are numerous ways to achieve that, or to even bring in, to open up to more synchronicities in your life, and to... that's just the easiest way probably that I want to say that. But go ahead. You had something.
I just say, once you start this practice and you start to really get into it, you'll start to find that this weaves into everything you do. Like she said, whether it be your business or your, just running the kids around town, this really starts to go into all aspects of your life. Some people might know there's one of the most famous business authors, Napoleon Hill, talks about how important your intimacy and your sex life is to your business. He taps into that in that book, and it really is. I mean, your relationships outside of your intimate relationships can grow better, or can grow from this experience too. So it starts to... It's like the roots of a plant or something. It starts to work its way through everything that you have in your life.
Well, it lifts you up, and it can bring so much more joy just within you, and it helps your inner light shine brighter. So whether you have an inner light or not, it's because a lot of people don't know that. I have dear friends that are like, I don't have them. We're like, oh my gosh, you're this amazing bright light, and they don't even realize it. And people are drawn to them, and they just don't see it themselves. So those things will happen. Obviously, there's the physical benefits to sex. We feel better. It's a stress reliever. There's numerous benefits, things that we've even learned that aren't really out there, to release pain and so forth. There's so many things. And so when you feel better, you start to shine brighter. And it's not just making your relationship better. Your family is happier because you're happier around them. The people at the store because you're nicer to the cashier. So it starts to feed out everywhere, even though people have no clue that that's why you're so happy all the time. Maybe and for me, and I think Rob would agree, that is my spirituality. That's just part of my spiritual practice. And even though yes, there are some definite traditions out there and religions that are like, oh my gosh, this is scary, bad, it's wrong, they'll be fearful of it.
Right.
It's really, what it really is in that sense is a prayer.
I see.
I was raised in with a Baptist background, so Christian tradition. I don't, because of the rigidity of that, no pun intended, I kind of renounced that. So because I'm open, we're it's what resonates. There's pieces of Wiccan, and there's parts of paganism and Buddhism and different, and of course the tantric practices, and there's different things that come in, and so it's for us, it's about being spiritual, not focused on one path.
Well, I'd like to ask you how you associate that with spirituality other than satisfaction, sexual satisfaction, because there's a sense of basically having a nice massage.
Mm-hmm.
You can
Right.
call that a spiritual massage. Or
Yes,
you can say that
absolutely.
basically, that euphoric feeling of jumping out of an airplane,
Mm-hmm.
Right.
can be a sexual experience,
Yes.
if you want to
Yeah.
take it that way. So, how are you associating this with sexual spirituality and sexuality together, unless you go at it with an intent, and the magic is the motion of the sexual intercourse, and then you beget the manifestation of what your intent has been and then is. Is that what you're doing?
Yes, I think the manifestation part of it comes with the practice and making sure you're focusing that intention on that manifestation. We've found some amazing things, and some of the couples that we've worked with have amazing things that are coming to them because they're starting to learn to focus the sexual energy. After we make love, a lot of times I will physically see the sexual energy on the top of our on the roof or on the ceiling of our bedroom. To me, it's a green like fog sort of substance. And when you can start to go, okay, I want you to do this.
Mm-hmm.
It is a living, breathing thing, and it has intelligence, and it knows that this prayer, as Janelle put it, that we just experienced, is a way for us to ask the universe, ask our deity, or whatever we believe in, that to bring us these wonderful and amazing things.
And it doesn't have to be about, and I know I kind of said that a moment ago, I suppose, but it doesn't have to be this intent of a materialistic thing,
Right,
such
yes.
as financial abundance. It could be healing. It could be healing for
Right.
an entire community. In fact, one of our sexy challenges is focused on doing that, where you're actually helping heal the environment at, your local community somewhere. There's probably more than just the one that's
Right.
popped into my head of that, but so it's really powerful, because if more and more and more and more people would just focus their intent of honoring their partner, if that was the intent, and that's all the intent was, and if they were even fearful of the other stuff or not understanding of the other, it was about honoring each other and the love that they have for each other and the life that they're sharing,
Yes.
that would lift up our planet.
Well, I've got a challenge for you both, because I understand that everyone, most people who listen to my show, the people who, listen to what I have to say and things like that, we all have a commonality about spirituality. But I also get people who come about and who have questions. I get lots of skeptics that I enjoy, approaching and, challenging off of different things. So, I will ask you a couple questions, and I'm quite sure that won't be a problem for either one of you. But let's talk about the pornography industry, because the pornography industry, they invest into lots of sexual, interaction. I'm quite sure you have to honor your partner to play the part, especially if you're going to get paid a pretty penny. So. How do you associate that? Because what I'd like people to understand is that there is a different time. There's a different type of sexual energy that you put into versus sexual energy. So can you differentiate that for the audience, possibly?
Well, with pornography, obviously there's a lot of what I would call bad pornography out there, to where it's very degrading and very unappealing to the masses. Now, there are fetishes out there for everybody. We've seen that over and over again in our society, from foot fetishes to the bondage and everything like that. But there's in some of those, there's so little honoring. Now they're making a switch, and they're starting to create pornography and at that point I don't call it pornography, I call it erotica or erotic arts, to where it's a more loving and passionate exchange between the two people, and it's not
it's not just about the physical.
Not just so much about the physical. It's where you can actually see the interaction between the two people, and I think that's something wonderful to watch and to witness. If you're into that, obviously some people aren't, but to see that love come through in there instead of just the pizza guy delivers a pizza and all of a sudden everybody's naked. That's it.
Like 20 people. Yeah.
I don't want people to think that ordering a pizza becomes a spiritual practice in that sense. But
Okay,
Yes.
I got you. Well, my next question is a very challenging one that I've actually posed to the public quite often, and I have received some. Let's just say I've received some fibs, and I've received some people just refrain says, they're just going to take the fifth. All right, now we're talking about sexual. How far would you go to heal? Because you did say that you would go as far as healing your community. You mentioned helping people and helping various situations. What about helping that person if both, Rob, if you saw a woman at a bus stop and you said, oh, goodness, she looks, she doesn't look too good today. I think I need to just go ahead and just give her some sexual healing. And you, Janelle, I mean, what about you? You this poor man, he just really just needs, some loving today so we can get about this energy. Either one of you, I'm sure, has prayed for someone, done a ritual of some sort to help that person. Why wouldn't you just basically go ahead and get down to the good and dirty, or let's just say the good and the good and the big O, help that person reach the good O? How far would you go?
What my immediate answer would be is Rob and I are very adamant about being committed to each other and sexually. So if we were going to focus on healing, which we actually have done for other people, it's through our sexual practice together. So we would make love to each other, but then direct our sexual energy to healing to that person or that community. That's just how we've chosen to do that.
I think the big thing from our standpoint and the way we approach it is, part of the ingredient that makes us so powerful is to have that love and that commitment to each other. Just the act itself can be just biological. But when you throw the love and compassion into it, now this isn't saying, if there's a polyamorous couple out there, or a couple or a group out there that all love each other, they could do the same thing. But within our relationship, the love that we have for each other just makes that energy so much more powerful.
And at the same time, just because that's what we choose to do and that we wouldn't sleep with someone else or have sex with someone else, doesn't mean that we think it's wrong for someone to do that. Because we're not going to judge somebody else's choices with that. Because I do, I do understand energy healing, and, I can do that. I've worked on, I've done energy healing on like my mother and my kids, and because I don't do that for a living, so we just kind of share that within the family.
Right.
And even our youngest child is crazy, amazing, little bit of a healer, puts his hands on you and your pain goes away. It's phenomenal. So we have no problem with that, but we just would choose to not take it to that farther level. Again, not saying that it's wrong. It's just what we would choose.
Right.
To not go that far.
I see. So would that also eliminate the possibility of masturbating on your own to give out sexual energy or some type of energy towards someone to heal them?
I can't say that, no. Because we would still be willing to focus the energy,
Right.
just not actually physically be connected with them in that physical form.
Right. I think that there, again, I go back to the loving aspect. Masturbation is fine for people to do, and it's even as a couple you can do that together and direct sexual energy. But again, I go back to the love aspect of it, and as when that's there, it makes that orgasmic energy and that sexual energy so much more powerful. As it does everything in our universe. That when you throw love involved into it, it makes it more powerful.
I want to clarify that. I don't know if I can clarify it, but I want to add something to that though, because I know, and I can only speak for me, but when I see someone that is in pain, whether they're homeless or whether they're ill or whatever it might be, and it doesn't have to be just that they're in pain. It could be that they're just having a happy day, but I feel love for other people. I have a deep love for others. It's just not a romantic love, so there is a difference.
Right.
Right.
But there is a very deep spiritual love. As far as I'm concerned, I really can't put it in human words. So it's not that I wouldn't love somebody else.
Right.
It's just that if I wanted to heal them, and we have done that. We have had people say, yes, please dedicate your sexual energy, to send towards my healing. And we've done that.
Mm-hmm.
And they know that we're going to do that.
Right.
So.
Okay. Well, I mean, that clarifies a lot, because that shows that it's about commitment. It's about the interchange between the two of you that's very sacred. And spirituality is about, being sacred and very focused. And if you're all over the place and you don't know where you're going, things aren't going to be as concentrated as they should. And that's very good. What about helping people out there who really are trying to go this route? Because I think you'll find people wanting to just reach the orgasm and not connect with the spirituality. How would you actually help someone on the first 3 steps and really attaining this heightened awareness and this connection?
I really think it starts with just increasing their sensual experience during their lovemaking. Because if you're trying to climb the mountain, and this analogy could work for trying to attain, enlightenment, if you will, or really that deep connection with spirit. Or it could, be an analogy for, reaching your climax. But if you're climbing the mountain and your whole focus is just getting to the top, you just want to get to the top, you don't take any time to stop, take a breath, look around, notice this, maybe the stream that's, running down the side, or you don't see the scenery, you don't see the animals, you miss so much on the way up there. But you can't just jump up to the top. It takes time to take those steps and to be aware of what's there. So you have to build up, because it depends on where your sex life is. If it's freaking phenomenal to begin with, you're starting at a different place.
Right.
If it's struggling a little bit, or if it's, okay, we have a good sex life, whatever, I really want it hotter, then that's a different place. So we always try to, meet our clients where they are, if you will.
Was that a subliminal message to Rob?
Yes.
I said, was that a subliminal message from Janelle to Rob? Was that a subliminal, to make it harder? No, I was just joking. I agree. You cannot climb Mount Everest if you've never climbed a smaller mountain before. So I totally understand and agree with that. If people are to the point where is that they've actually attained that, should they seek a particular partner, or does it matter to have just an exclusive one, or what would you recommend?
Well,
I mean, you have to, again, it's what you need. If you need that one partner, if that works for you, that's wonderful. If it works for you to where, you have several partners and you can give them all that love and attention within that, then that's great too. I mean, it depends on the individual and what they feel comfortable with.
I would say it's where you are.
Right.
Where you are at that very moment in your life and your spirituality and your just energetically where you are, what your knowledge is, what your understanding is, and what your desires are. Darn it, I had something else. I'm like, squirrel. I had something else I was going to add, and it's just like, it's gone. It'll probably come back in a minute if it works out to the right time. Darn. Oh well.
I do know that you have sessions with your patients, and you have various things that you do, and they can reach that on sexychallenges.com. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
and in doing that, people, you were in Colorado at the moment, so what would be some of the things that you would actually ask people to, how would they actually communicate this to you if they wanted a step-by-step? Is it about positions? Because we didn't talk about sexual positions. I mean, does it matter about the position that you use, or is it about basically, the actual big O? I mean, granted, I understand it's not about the big O, but I'm just wondering, is there a particular position that you prefer to start people off in, or is it about just the connection?
It's more about the connection, the positions. Those could add variety, add spice, if you will. But the connection's the main thing there. It's great to try different positions, and that we recommend that to people. But it's that connection has to be there first. That's what we need to work on first. Before they start going out and just thinking, just changing of positions is not going to change your stance on anything,
Right.
as far as how you feel. So
When I go back to a couple of things, I guess, but one is trust. You have to have that trust with your partner so that you can become vulnerable, because you are physically vulnerable at that point, but so that you can then open up further emotionally, as well as then for your spirituality to open up. But the other big thing that I always tell people is you really have to be in touch with yourself. You really do need to fully, well, I shouldn't say fully, because that's like a lifelong journey, more than one lifelong journey, but to be willing to know who you are and understand who you are, because a lot of people don't. They feel kind of lost. They're, doing what everybody else tells them to do, doing, just going along with what society expects and so forth, even when they're alone, or even especially when they're alone with their partner.
Right.
So it's really important to be in touch with yourself, with your own soul, with your higher self, whatever you might like to call it.
Sure.
And I think that's a big place to start.
Well, you mentioned something that's key to a lot of people, and let's just say just basically just society. And my last two questions for you is this. In reference to younger people having sex, people are people, souls are souls. What's your take on that? Because, you're talking about, you could have a very, an indigo, child. And granted, my show is not meant to, insult any parents. But, we put all our own, let's say references of limits and, things aren't, some things that are prohibited in certain cultures. But you've got people in certain cultures that start sex at 12. And then some of them cannot do it until after 18, or whatever the case may be. So what is your take on that, and what would you suggest? And with parents who say that they've got some rebelling teenager who just watched the show, and all of a sudden they just want to sex everyone from sexual, some spirituality.
Right. Well, I mean, the big thing we have to understand is, as far as our bodies, most people's bodies, when you hit puberty, your body's ready. Your body's telling you, I'm ready for this. I'm ready to go. And that might be as young as 12 years old. And, in our society here, we're constantly, you got to wait till you're either married or you're out on your own and things like that. And it's such a mixed message to our children. There's some, I'm sure I'll get railed on some of this, but there's some thought to, I always feel there should be a masturbation class for kids, because they don't know. They don't know that this is okay, because we've always put such a taboo on it, and they need to know how it feels, that moment of orgasm. And I would think that would decrease the numbers of teen pregnancies, as I just don't know how this feels. I don't know what for sure is going to happen. This is my first time, and oh my gosh, what just happened?
Well, and at least here in the U.S., what our teenagers, because we have a couple of teenagers, so, and then of course we have our younger son, but what they teach the kids at school is simply the biological aspects of sex, and this is going to work, this is what's going to happen, and then you can get these diseases, or you can end up having a baby, so don't do it. Well, we're not saying that they need to go run around and do it, but yet, because that's what our society is, it's the culture we've grown up in, that, you need to be 18, and legally you're supposed to be 18 here. So I can't say that we can say, it's okay to do it, because that's not our choice either.
Right.
But yet, if the kids understood the deeper part of it, that there's a really deep connection with your partner, and that you do actually blend your energy with that lover, whether you are intimately love them or not, you do blend your energy during that time.
Yes.
So it might make you think about it a little bit differently. Like, well, maybe I don't want to do that, or maybe I really do. So I just feel like there's so much more that our kids could know and understand. But of course, that crosses those lines with the various different religions and different traditions and what everybody believes. So how in the heck you would share that, so you have to do that. I mean, obviously we're raising our boys or young men we share our beliefs with them.
Right.
And all I can say is from ours, and that's only our 2 sons, but they're not wild and crazy. And even though they're young men, they seem to be really focused on caring for the young ladies and being very respectful. And so in that sense, they're not the stereotypical teenage boy. So I feel so strongly that if our kids understood those things better without the, oh, it's bad, 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 don't do that,
right,
then they wouldn't be as apt to rebel, and they would wait a little bit longer until they felt more ready.
I see. I agree with that, and I agree with both of what you've said. Rob, I agree with your masturbation class, and I agree that you actually should, really have that rapport with your children to really teach them and share, with them, your thoughts as well, because they're very healthy ones. Well, the last question I do have for you is about the, entertainment industry and really about what our retailers actually promote. A lot of sexuality with the dressing, a lot of, there's a lot of sex going on, and really you cannot pass, you cannot, avoid sex. It's all over the place, and here you are associating it with spirituality, and in pretty much the industry has promoted it as some type of promiscuous thing, some type of thing, whereas it's very provocative. It's to the point of being trashy. So how do you? Where's a safe point? where is it? Because you can dress sexy and really that's the way you feel. I dress sexy. Because I enjoy just making myself look good and just really enjoying myself. I enjoy me in many ways. So I would like to understand that, because many people need to understand really it's not trashy. It's not always provocative. But how do you put the spirituality into it?
Well, and at first I want to say, too, that because of what I do, or what we do, it's not just me, but I'm a little bit more cautious because I'm talking about sex a lot.
Right.
And some of those men will stand a lot closer to me. If I'm in a situation where they can physically stand closer, or you have to watch those emails or those comments on Facebook or wherever, and always kind of keep my guard up and make sure that they know the boundaries, because it's not what so much of the media portrays.
Right.
It's not pornographic. It's not that piece. It is so... I just am like, it's so sacred. And then I know you're like, well, wait, explain that more.
Well, I think one of the things for me is, unfortunately, sex sells, and the advertisers know that, so they're going to use every drop of that they can to attract business, and because it catches our eye. You see a lingerie ad or something like that, or the guy without his shirt on, and people look.
Because we're all drawn to it.
Right.
And what people don't realize is that we're constantly, some of us consciously and many, many people unconsciously, seeking that deeper sensation, and it's our access to our spirituality. And I know some people will be like, oh, whatever, especially those that aren't spiritual or consciously spiritual. Sure. And I get that, but I believe they're seeking that. They're seeking that sense of home, or that feeling that sneaks in, even if you don't realize it. Right. And so we can attain that through our sexuality. Because it's like because it alters your state of consciousness when you're making love, and especially at the point of climax or the point of orgasm, it alters that state of consciousness. So you are more open to those spiritual perspectives, spiritual aspects to flow in. So when we see something that's sexy, we're drawn to it.
Right.
And then, unfortunately, because of that psychology, then yes, the marketing industry has abused it and said, oh, look, well, they're going to be drawn to it, so let's use this in a way to get them to do whatever.
Right. And, it's such a sad scenario that we use it so much, the movies and everything, and they don't put in that, that sacred piece of it, to where, it is this beautiful, loving thing. It's not just an object for effect, some object to oogle. There's so much more deep to it, because, if Janelle wears something sexy, I'm very honored. It's not like, when you see a billboard and there's somebody on there and their underwear and bra, to me, that's not necessarily honoring them, and honoring their body in that match, because, everybody's, viewing it, everybody's seeing it. It's not, you can't go up, I can't go up and feel that person. I can't feel their energy. I can't feel their passion at that point. But yet I'm drawn to it because it's a sexy image. And now I'm shut down. I'm like, where does this sexy, feeling I have go? It's just, we're just stagnant now.
Well, and because I get all a tingle when Rob lets his shadow, his 5 o'clock shadow come in, and he'll let it. I don't like it too long, but I'm like, oh, I just love that, and so he'll do that, and he'll let it grow in. He doesn't have it today, but he'll let it grow in a day, maybe or so, and then he'll shave it off, because he scratches me up, but. It's like so freaking sexy, and I love it. So even though sometimes I think it kind of annoys him, to let it grow in, it itches or whatever, but he'll do that for me because he knows I'm like, oh my God, look at you, and I'm distracted. But yeah, that's sexy on other men. If I think they're attractive, it's sexy on them. But I'm like, that's great, that's wonderful, but they're not like him. They're not my relationship. They're not real.
Yes, I understand.
In that sense.
Yes, because both of you have a connection. Well, in conclusion, I'd like to ask you one question that I feel that needs to be addressed, because many people have fallen back on the assumption, or let's just say the clinical analysis of, of being oversexed, and they have to go to sex therapy. Could it be that they are lacking or needing, they're wanting that fulfillment of something, because I was a teenager, and sometimes you kind of figure, oh, that feeling's a little bit different, but then I can recapture that feeling, that feeling that you do have when you're a teenager of really wanting sex. But when you really want it all the time and you can't stop, and you're pretty much an addict, how do you associate that with spirituality and your need, your want, the connection that you're craving for? Because many people are defaulting their infidelity to having some type of sexual problem within themselves, that they have to have some type of therapy. What's your take on that? In a spiritual sense, not so much as like psychological one or clinical one.
Well, I think, and I know we're both like jumping. We're so ready. We're going to have an answer.
I'll let ladies go first.
But I really think that they have some really deep spiritual wounds, which can overlap. I mean, in all honesty, that can really be considered that lack of love for some reason in their life, that's something that is missing somewhere. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's missing in their adult life or the age that they are, their teenage life, whatever. It could have been from their childhood, or because I am really adamant that we do experience more than one life, it could come from different lives. It could be from a past life or a concurrent life, depending on your view on that.
Well, I agree with you. I think there's something missing there that they're trying to fill up, just like an alcoholic or a drug addict would do. They're trying to fill that up with sex, and just as much of it as they can get, and they're missing that, the spiritual piece of it. And it's more about the quality than the quantity in that sense. So the quantity's great if it's flowing and it's loving and it's passionate, but if you're just trying to fill it up with as much as you can, you're not getting yourself the healing that you need.
I think too that if you compare it in that sense, where whether it's an addiction to television or alcohol or whatever, we're numbing ourselves to whatever else is going on.
Sure.
And that can be the same with the sex, because then you're numbing yourself, and so you've blocked out, I'm not saying everyone, of course, but potentially you've blocked out any spiritual connection, though. So you're not getting that. And so you're still wounded, I guess, really deep at the core. And actually, I think it's kind of heartbreaking. And then pop psychology, I mean, I have the psychology background, I know, but traditional psychology, I sometimes have my issues with. Because those excuses are given to people. Like, oh, well, this is why. And so it becomes an excuse for some. Some truly have an issue. Others just like, well, that's my excuse. And I'm going to get by with it now.
All right.
So.
Yeah, well, I would say that if anyone has, let's say, a sexual addiction and you have problems with commitment, that you should, explore your relationship and your needs and like Janelle has said, do an analysis of what you're missing and try to balance that. And if you need to, seek a physician to help you out rather than taking, this because, every situation is individual and unique.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So with
Absolutely.
that, I would like to thank you both for being on the show. You've answered so many great questions, and it's been really fabulous. We've talked about puberty, we've talked about infidelity, we've talked about commitment, we've talked about love, we talked about orgasms and lots of sex. And I know we'll always talk about lots of sex, but that's what makes the world go round. They say it's money, but it is sex, because there's always sex behind everything.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you again for showing up. Thank you. Take care.
Oh, it was our pleasure. Thank you.
Exploring sexuality, and tonight's topic is exploring sexuality within spirituality. Damn it!
That's okay. Well, you're not the only one. Can you pause 1 second? I'm so sorry. Our five-year-olds.
I have both with me, Janelle and Alex. Rob. Oh God. Okay. You know what? That is. See, some people just refrain, says they're just gonna take the fifth. All right. Now we're talking about sexual energy. We're talking about energy that both of you do have, both of you do share. Both, of you obviously are synchronized with each other. And, hence you having the connection together to beget the, such a unison portion of... Just what...